Welcome to the What Now podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Powers. Follow along as I figure out how to go from feeling lost and at a crossroads in my life to hopefully, eventually, being found. If you have ever felt like you needed a change or pivoting from your current experience is necessary, but you just don't know how, join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Hello, welcome back to What Now, a podcast for Lost and Found. This is your host, Amanda. It has been a 2-week hiatus, ladies and gentlemen. I've been traveling. Jackson's wedding just happened. I got home last week, but Dirks and I have been so busy. Right, buddy? Would you like to say anything to the people? No, you don't get to eat the microphone. Thank you, though. Anyway, we have been hustling and bustling for a bit, and I apologize. I know if I had the ability to do some stuff ahead of time, we could have had shows come out, and it wasn't going to happen between my job and getting ready for the wedding and helping my parents out and driving back and forth to all these different places. It's been a minute. So I appreciate your patience and being super flexible with me while I work through everything and get my life back in order. Because that's always how it goes, right? You go on vacation or you go on a trip or you go do something, and you really should take a vacation from your vacation. So like always build in that extra day at the end of your trip to do your grocery shopping, do your 2 weeks worth of laundry, get your house in order. And I've been trying to do that, and every night when I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back and I'm going to record again, and it just it didn't happen, and I feel behind, but oh well, that's life. Sorry. Whew, man. Not only was I gone for 2 weeks, but now I subject you to my terrible singing. You're welcome. Only the loyal wanderers are going to really appreciate that. But yeah, here we are. We're back. So I figured the last episode we kind of talked about, when I was in DC and Philly and visiting friends and trying to, address feelings of living with regret and the life transitions that I've been going through lately, and kind of how, allegedly your 30s are amazing and you're supposed to finally have your stuff together after being a chaotic little gremlin in your 20s, and it just hasn't quite been feeling that way. Apparently I decided to upend the table 2 years ago, and I'm still dealing with the fact that table is still on the ground upside down. But it's okay. So here we are. We left on a really good note to go to Jackson's wedding. So for those of you who may not know, of my parents, I am the middle child. My younger brother, who lives in North Carolina, is a sweetheart, goofball, crazy mountain man, and he ended up marrying the love of his life. Her name is Lee. She was a guest on an earlier episode. I will tag it so that way you can listen. She is a wedding planner. So she and I dived into all things love and planning weddings and how to what it's like running your own business when your business is all focused on love, and like what to do with that, and her tips and tricks and things that she really, really cares about and helps her clients with, and her hopes and dreams of what she wants to do in the future. And they fell in love 4 years ago. They met through college, but started dating in August of 2020 and got married in July of 2024. So it's been a really great, wonderful experience to watch my brother grow and share his life with someone that he truly, deeply cares about. And I thought we could kind of just recap a little bit about the wedding. And I wanted to talk a bit about the feelings that come up when you're at an event like that. There's obviously lots of, love and nostalgia and sometimes a little bit of stress and a little bit of anxiety, but it's exciting anxiety sometimes, depending on who you are and what role you're playing while you're at an event like this. But other times it can be a very reflective moment for not only the bride and groom, but the guests that are there and their family members. And it was a very reflective moment for me as well. Even though Jackson's not come on the show, he knows that I care for him very, very deeply. And anybody that knows me really well knows that I love my brother more than anything and respect him and admire him, and I'm deeply, deeply proud of him. So there was just a lot of feelings and a lot of reflections that I was having while I was going through the past 3 days, observing him and his friends and everybody that came out to support him. So I kind of jotted down some ideas, and I started listening to some other podcasts to kind of catch up on stuff that I thought would be relatable to this. I found a podcast, an older podcast from Call Her Daddy, where Father Cooper is interviewing Jay Shetty. And Jay Shetty is a famous meditation and love guru and lifestyle coach, just to, broad strokes there, but author, podcaster, producer, and business entrepreneur, professional speaker that talks a lot about love and relationships. And so he came on Call Her Daddy to promote his book from, I think, may have been 2021, possibly, I think. But I'll tag the episode in there so you can go back and listen to it in depth, because I think they talked about a lot of really important things. But he touched on a few things that I had already been thinking about while I was at the wedding. So I promise this sounds roundabout, but it'll come full circle. Just keep listening. I promise it'll come full circle. But I wanted to title this episode, Don't Freak Out Yet, because there were several anxiety-inducing kind of moments or conversations while I was at the wedding that I'm not going to say triggered, because triggered is sometimes a really overused word, especially when it's taken out of context for what's happening to you personally. But on top of all of the positive, amazing, wonderful, kind, loving things that were happening that weekend, there were other things where it kind of made me reflect on romantic love and what exactly is that, and how do you find it, how do you define it, find it, and keep it. Of those three things, which ones are really the priority, and how to put that together, and how do you get to a place where you are confident in your answers to those three things and not feel uncomfortable or defensive or insecure about your answers to those things. And to be completely honest, I didn't fully have answers, which is why it was great to listen to Jay Shetty's interview on Call Her Daddy, because he kind of goes through the motions of those things and explains his responses to those questions using his own life. So I thought that we could kind of weave all that together. So explaining the wedding, explaining my mindset at the wedding, and then how I process my mindset at the wedding by listening to this other podcast episode, and hopefully me sharing just the vulnerability of what my thought process was will help you feel less alone and less lost, and at least feel seen in terms of being, if you happen to be, still single in your 30s, not really sure about marriage anymore, not really sure about kids anymore, and you're trying to figure out what your new answers are to these questions. Because maybe you're like me and you used to have answers to these questions, and now those answers are changing the further along you get in your life, or the further along you get in your career or your growth process or your experiences. Let's dive in. So Jackson and Lee had a 3-day event. Their rehearsal dinner was on a Sunday. The wedding itself was on a Monday, and the reception was that Monday night. And then the next Tuesday morning was what they called field day. So that was the day that anybody that was still on the property that wanted to participate could come hang out, have lunch at the venue. They could play a bunch of games that they had set up, and Jackson had built a hatchet board where you could throw axes on one of the wood boards outside, and he brought other additional games, and his wife brought out a few field games and things like that, like croquet and bocce ball and some other random stuff for people to play. So to get ready for that, my parents and Jackson's wife's Lee, or her parents, all prepared a lot of food for all the in-between meals. So I drove up to Kingsport with my parents, helped them with some deliveries, helped them with some pickups, helped my dad pack this U-Haul that we had to rent to carry all the food over that my mom had made and collected over the weeks leading up to this event. We drove that over on that Sunday, unpacked everything, put our stuff away into our rooms, and then had to get ready for the rehearsal dinner. I met up with all the bridesmaids and got to meet the ones that couldn't make it to the bachelorette. And we all, took photos and hung out with Lee. And then we had the rehearsal practice up at the top of the mountain. So where they got married is a place called Twickenham House and Hall. And that's a top of a mountain in an area called Jefferson, North Carolina. And there was a lookout point at the top of the hill. I guess technically the top of the mountain, where you could look out into a valley and see 3 different areas of the South. So you can see different parts of the Appalachian Mountains, but there was Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina all in the same view. So it's a very widespread mountain view, and it's absolutely gorgeous and super beautiful. And the theme of the wedding was French Garden Party. So all of the bridesmaids had floral dresses, each with a different pastel color as kind of the base. I was a green pastel, so I had like a pale, really pretty, kind of a cross between mint and sage, I guess. And it had pink and white florals on mine. So we all looked I felt chic, right? And I appreciated Lee giving us the opportunity to pick out our own dresses and stuff. But everything went off with a hitch, without a hitch. The only major things that hit us were it did rain in between some of the events, and we ended up not being able to do the actual wedding ceremony at the top of the cliff where you could look out into the valley. But to recover that, as soon as the ceremony was over and it had stopped raining and we weren't doing the covered porch space, they took Jackson and Lee back up to the top, and they got to take some, I guess, sunset related photos. So it looked really nice, and I'm super excited to see some of the photos. And Lee already gave us a few of the sneak peeks, and I've posted a few of those on my personal Instagram account, amanda.k.powers. And then I saved a few of those under the wedding highlight on my page. So if you want to go back and look at that, you can. But I'll be honest, I was a little afraid. I wasn't feeling my best when I was wearing that dress. The top ended up being slightly tighter than I thought it would be. Not bad, but enough to where if you're a girl and you're self-conscious, even a little bit, you worry that you might look a little funny in some of the photos. But no, it ended up looking beautiful. And if everybody looked that good in just the preview photos, I can only imagine what the final full list of photos are going to look like. So it was absolutely beautiful and really lovely. And Lee's dream plan of making it come out into a just truly gorgeous, floral, whimsical, an elegant garden party, truly. Instead of having bouquets that we carried, we had little woven wicker baskets that had our flowers inside of them. And we had these white umbrellas, and it matched our white lace gloves. So everything was, all the teeny tiny accessories that were spread throughout the event had all the correct florals and lace and pearls like looped in. As we talked about in Lee's episode a few months back, she was the oyster queen of her town. So there is an oyster festival every year in her town where she's from. And in high school, they crown high school king and queens, and then whoever becomes the king and the queen of the oyster festival gets money for college, and they get to do philanthropy work throughout the town, and they get, just kind of different accesses. And so she has held tight to that to that title, as she should. I get it. If I had won any kind of beauty and intelligence and philanthropy contest like that, I would talk about it too. But it was really, really lovely. Everything just wove together really nicely, and clearly her being a wedding planner worked out, because it may have been incredibly stressful to get it all together and do all the logistics, but it was very obvious that she put so much love and thought and care into the events, and she wanted everyone to have a good time, and they did. And there was so much beautiful detailing on the entire property for all 3 days. And so it was really cool, because I obviously have never been to this event or venue before. So it was neat to be able to see her skills come to life and her interpretation of what an ideal wedding would be, because obviously she helps her clients bring their ideal visions come to life. And so it was neat to just get a different perspective and see what she envisioned. And it was very her. And and Jackson looked good too. Bless him. His suit did not fit as well as he would have liked. And I know. And he joked a lot about, he couldn't really bend over or dance as much as he wanted to because he was afraid his pants would rip. And bless his heart, nobody makes thick, muscular guys suits very well. Not really. And they even went and got him fitted, but I guess the material was just tapered too much rather than being a looser fit. So bless him, he did not get the suit that he originally wanted or had paid for. But all in all, the colors looked great. He looked great. He still had his full beard and full hair at the time when everybody arrived on Sunday. And so on Monday, he promised her that he would get his hair cleaned and trimmed. But little did she know, he actually not only did the hair and got it braided, so that way he looked very, Viking-like, which is his ultimate goal always. He shaved his beard completely off, barefaced, which nobody was expecting. But I think she probably was surprised, but appreciated the opportunity to take photos with him where he looked a bit more cleaned up than normal. But if anybody knows Jackson, it will grow back very quickly in basically a week. And so he'll have his beard once again. So nobody fret. I did see a couple people had already commented on photos and reels that people had made for the wedding. And they were like, oh no, not the beard, man. Can't get rid of that. That's got all your power in it. And it's okay. He'll be fine. It'll come right back. Jackson is still Jackson, whether there's a beard or not. Oh, but it was really lovely. And I think my favorite part of the entire event was being able to see his friends and watch so many people who loved him and supported him throughout his entire life. So there were people there from elementary neighborhood kids to middle school friends to high school friends to college friends. And these men and women that were there, some of them are now married or engaged on their own, and some of them are married now with their first kids. And so it's just wild to see Jackson coming into his own and starting this new chapter of his life as an adult, and watching all of his friends who are doing the exact same things come there and support him and show him love and appreciation and, congratulations and respect and just fun, and making it almost felt like a little miniature family reunion, a little miniature neighborhood reunion. And it was just sweet to also see them approach our parents and thank them for giving them such a safe space when they were growing up. It was the opportunity to be yourself house. And in that meant love and respect and safety. And I think a lot of kids appreciated that. I know I did growing up there. Most of my friends and I went to other places for our safety houses, were different people's houses, but Jackson's friends, it was our house that they wanted to come to. It was our house where they could hang out and relax and chill on the back porch and, turn on the bonfire and hang out, play music, talk for hours, chill just together and have fun. Even if they weren't doing anything, just being together was fun. And they had a good time, and they always knew, we'd have a refrigerator stocked, and if you needed rides home, we would give them to you. And if you needed a place to vent or to crash or to figure things out, you could always do that with Mitch and Leslie. And I know that meant a lot to my parents to be able to give their love to Jackson, but also receive love back in return and acknowledgement for allowing everybody else that loved Jackson so much to be a part of that life too, sharing him with so many people. And I think that was very, very meaningful, and it makes me hope that if that ever happens to me and I do ever get the opportunity to make a family, I hope I can pass that down. I hope that I can build a life where theoretically, if my kids grow up and get married, they would say something similar, or at least I would like that. I would want it to be the safe space for my kids and their friends. So, but there were amazing times. We did have a few family members, extended family members from our side that were able to make it. So it was so good to catch up with them and see them. And I'll be honest, I did not get as much time with them as I would have liked. It's just kind of tough when you're doing a wedding during the week. So I get that. A lot of people still had to travel or go back to the office on Tuesday. So hopefully we can get another time where we can all reconnect again and spend some time together. And then I guess there were a few moments when I was meeting other people at the wedding, or did not know at the time, but was meeting for the first time. And everyone was super, super lovely. I want to preface this with nothing that I'm about to talk about was written down or noted for this episode as like a place of hate or anger or rudeness or disrespect or whatever. But just, you're at a wedding, similar when you go back home for family holidays, aunts and uncles, aunties, cousins, nieces, nephews, everybody just, sometimes you don't really know what to talk about. So you just bring up what's the most obvious thing to talk about. And when you're at a wedding and they're trying to get to know you, the first few questions they're going to ask, who are you? How do you know the bride and groom? Oh, are you married? Or, oh, do you have kids? Oh, when are you getting married? Or, are you dating anybody? You see anyone? Blah, 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 blah. And so I got asked that a lot. And that's to be expected. But when you get asked those things, it did bring up a lot of thoughts. And I could feel myself getting uncomfortable and starting to avoid eye contact when that would happen. And I'm sure it probably gave off a slight vibe of I'm uncomfortable, or a vibe of like, I don't care, or I'm not really interested in talking to you. And that wasn't necessarily the case, that I wasn't interested in what they had to say, or I didn't want to be nice or, polite with them. But it was just kind of one of those moments where this isn't about me, and I don't want to make it about me. And I also don't really have answers to all of these questions sometimes. So I started to notice myself just saying no over and over again. And at one point, I probably had a little too many glasses of champagne or mimosas. And somebody, asked, oh my gosh, well, you've done X, Y, and Z. I've heard about this from your brother. Like, I can't believe somebody like you's, not married yet. And I responded with, I'm just lucky, I guess. And they kind of looked at me funny, like, hold on. Your brother's getting married and you're happy for him, but if you think about marriage, you're just lucky you're not in one. Like, that doesn't make sense. And I just kind of brushed it off and moved on. But it kind of sparked that idea of like, I didn't want to get into the convo with a complete stranger. No, I'm not dating anyone. No, I'm not serious with anyone. Yes, I've had serious relationships in the past. They haven't worked out for numerous reasons. I'm not romantically involved, but romantic love is not the primary form of love that I have in my life. And I don't overvalue trying to find romantic love over all the other types of love. So it's just not that high of a priority, I guess. Or I'm not hyper focusing on making it that kind of a priority. If it happens, it happens. But I also have seen a lot of my friends my own age or a little bit older who have been married and now they're divorced, or they've been miserable, or they got married really young and now they feel stuck because they've got multiple kids and they don't really know what direction to go in. And it adds and adds and adds. And I don't know that that's no the answer for me anymore. Like, oh, no, no, you married? No. And then just drop it. So I tried to cut it off when people were talking to me because I didn't want it to make it about me, because it wasn't about me at all the entire weekend. And I know it's not. And I hope Jackson and Lee felt like the center of attention, like they deserve to be. But it just kind of started to make me think through what I was feeling and how much I thought, through the weekend or through the week that yes, it would have been cool to be there with a partner and share in that moment with my own partner, watching my brother get his partner and solidify that future for himself. And it could have been a shared moment. And there were a few of the bridesmaids there that were able to bring their partners and some that did not, but for different reasons. And you could see that it was fun. Everybody was super, into each other and in good moods and in good spirits. And it kind of made you want to believe in that again, believe in the power of romantic love and that you can find a person. And it gives me hope, but I don't want to be unrealistic about it either. Try not to feel bad about being there single. My goal was not to go to that wedding and let me go meet somebody, because let's be honest, 90% of the people that were there, I knew them already from childhood. We're not, absolutely not, no, not a thing. But there were moments where I started, to just privately question, how did I get here? How did I get to this point where I'm still, I'm in my 30s. I used to think that by this point, my mother was already pregnant with me. I think she had 2 or 3 jobs, something like that. My dad was working. They had their own house. Jackson eventually came along, but I'm nowhere near that point the way that they were back in the early 90s. And so it had me feeling very, very reflective on what kind of love am I actually looking for, and where am I going to find it, and how do I stop getting uncomfortable with answering with the word no. Are you married? No. Are you seeing anyone? No. Do you have kids? No. Because even when I said no at the wedding, nobody made me feel bad about it. Nobody was rude to me about it. They were just trying to come up with something to say to the person they had just met. But it's also hard to, when you're still uncomfortable with answering the word no, it's a little odd to keep having to think about it over and over again too, when normally I don't. I get up, I take care of Dirks, we exercise, I go to work, I might go to the gym, I might work on the podcast, I go see a friend, I cook dinner, I take care of myself. It's just, I have such a hyper independent life, and when you're forced to reflect on extending that independent life over and over and over again, it's just a lot. It made me realize that I'm still not comfortable with answering the word no to those things. I'm still trying to reconcile where I thought I would be at this point in my life and where I actually am. There's nothing wrong with saying no to those questions. There isn't. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I started kind of jot down some ideas of what I wanted to talk about, and to help me flesh out what I wanted to say, I tried to listen to some other podcasts about love, or about relationships, or about, avoiding the fantasy and going for the reality. What is it actually like to be in these relationships and to find a person, and how to have realistic expectations of a partnership, and what does that look like if you want to make it last in modern day? Because it's extremely rare to be like Jackson and Lee, where both their parents are still together. That's truly, it's just not common. A lot of people get divorced. It's, what is it, 50% chance of divorce rates, or maybe it's even upwards of 60 now. I don't know on the true stats on divorce rates in America, but it feels high to me because a lot of people that I love and I'm close with in my life, their parents are divorced. Or they have a strained, maybe they are still married, but they have a strained relationship. So it just doesn't look optimal to me. Still looks a bit grim. And I don't want to live a life where you feel like everything's grim. So I tried to figure out, all right, you're having all these feelings, they're fleshing up. How do you want to talk about it? And so I started listening to that, as we mentioned earlier, that Jay Shetty podcast. And he talked about the I think it's 8 rules for falling in love. And he talked about how to define romantic love. And before you can have it, you have to define it for yourself. And so he says that romantic love is when you like someone's personality, you respect their values, and you are committed to helping them achieve their goals. And I love that definition. I love it, but it can be tricky because that definition sounds like something that is a good foundational base for love. Like, you really shouldn't be super committed to somebody if you don't feel these ways about them. But this definition can also apply to friendship love or family love and stuff. So like my friends that I have that are close to me, I like their personalities. I want to spend time with them. I respect their values. If they need to do something that doesn't match up with mine, I'm going to support them to do what they need to do in the same way they'll support me. And I want to help them achieve their goals. But it's the true commitment to allow to love someone by letting them be exactly who they are and loving them exactly for who they are, the positives and the negatives, the good and the bad that you have to find. And now that we know what romantic love is, you have to figure out what priority it's going to take in your life. Because if you only build your self-worth around whether or not you have a romantic partner, you are doomed, because there's no guarantee that a romantic partner will always stay in your life. They're going to be different. You're growing. You're a human. You're changing and going through phases. You're transitioning often, sometimes. And there's no guarantee that the romantic partner that you started out with will be there at the end of that transition. And speaking from experience, I know that that's very true. It would be hard for me to love myself and believe that I have self-worth if the only thing I cared about was having a romantic partner or finding romantic love, because I haven't had that in quite a long time. And if I had let myself get to a place where I valued only that, I would have ruined my other friendships, my other familial relationships, anybody else that had cared about me. I would have been shoving them to the side, and I would have stunted my own growth by not including them or reminding myself or having gratitude for those other types of love when I didn't have a romantic partner anymore. And I wasn't, hyper focused on that, then like it would have been really hard for me to build up any kind of confidence or self-worth if I was only prioritizing romantic love. And Jay Shetty talks about, we're taught to think that the peak experience of life, the peak experience of love is only through romantic love. But really, there are just so many more ways to love one another than that. So kind of like I said, there's parent to child, friend to friend, sibling to sibling, child to parent. There are so many opportunities to give and receive love. And he says that we make the mistake of thinking that romantic love or the romantic relationship is the only place to find worth. And it's not. It's a nice place. It's a reassuring place. It probably helps you feel like you have something to lean on at the end of the day. But if you're not comfortable loving yourself and receiving love from others in different formats, I don't think you're ever going to find an emotional balance in your life, because then you will over prioritize romantic love over the other things. And you just can't do that, because you're not guaranteed to have all of those different types of love all at the same time, all of the time. So you have to develop that flexibility and adaptability when your life is changing and you're growing and those relationships change. That level of love can sometimes change too. And if you don't want to get completely thrown off, you have to figure out how to not hyper prioritize romantic love at that time. And the worst lesson, really, when you hypervalue romantic love, you are teaching yourself that if you don't have someone in your life, then you are not worthy of love. And that's just simply not true. And I already struggle with being worthy of love because my name literally means she who is worthy of love. And, if I ever did decide to do professional therapy, that would be problem number one. Be like, hi, what would you like to talk about? Well, let's just start from the very beginning. I was born with a name that I could never live up to. And they'd be like, what? What are you talking about? I'd be like, oh yeah. Yeah, this this is how I feel. This is why I have a really hard time accepting compliments or receiving romantic love from other people, because I don't really know that it's actually true, which is the biggest irony of my life, to be named Amanda. And that's a me problem. That's not a you as a listener problem. That's just me sharing that I am messed up. But I think it's very helpful when you feel messed up and you don't believe these things about yourself, is the reminder that love comes in many forms. And just because you don't have a romantic partner at a certain time of your life does not mean you are not worthy of receiving love in different ways. And when you can add a romantic relationship to that pile of love, or those different formats of love, it should be an enhancement to your life, not an emotional detriment when it's not around. Especially if you add it to your life and it becomes an emotional detriment, then that's not a healthy form of love at all. And you definitely shouldn't prioritize that romantic relationship simply for the fact that you're afraid of being alone, or simply for the fact that you're afraid of being someone that doesn't have a romantic partner. Like that's silly and dangerous. Also, speaking from experience, don't get into a relationship simply because you're simply because you're afraid of being alone, or because you're trying to punish yourself for something that you should have done previously, and you end up being with a partner that's an episode for another day, where you punish yourself for the romantic relationship you did have or the way you acted in a previous one, and you attempt to engage in another one without fully healing from the first mistakes, and you just repeat it over and over. It's a very slippery slope, and that form of romantic love is not actually romantic love just because it gets labeled that way by a partner. Oh, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend. That doesn't matter. If they make you feel like garbage, that's not worth keeping around simply for the sake of having it around, or having the ability to say, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have a partner, etc. So I wanted to dive in a little bit further, because when Jay Shetty started talking about, how to define romantic love, and that you don't want to devalue the other parts of your life where you are receiving love in different ways from different types of relationships, it started to make me think about feelings of being lonely versus being alone. And although I may be alone in life, quote unquote, I don't necessarily feel lonely because I have love coming from other directions, from other people, and from myself, right? And just because you might be alone right now in terms of a relationship status, you really don't want to hyper focus on what you don't have, because then that's going to end up making you devalue the other relationships that you actually have in your life. So I didn't have really resounding feelings of loneliness at the wedding event. I was surrounded by people who were either in love or filled with love and supportive of Jackson and Lee. And so it was a great place to be, and to be surrounded by that, and to know that it feels good to know that my brother has found something that will bring that kind of joy into his life. And that's really all you would ever want for, your siblings or your friends or your own partner in the future. So I would encourage anybody who might be having similar feelings to what I had and what I've discussed so far, is to kind of think about the difference between being lonely in a moment versus being alone in your life. And if both are happening, then, maybe you can seek out help to work through that and build relationships up again if you've lost them over time. But also reconciling the fact that, like, just because you are alone doesn't necessarily mean you have to feel lonely, or you should be expected to feel lonely because you're not in the same kind of place as the other people that are around you, because it's not fair. And when I really sat down and thought through my emotions and what I was thinking and feeling while I had been there, the reality was I don't feel lonely. Even though I was getting asked questions that should have made me feel that way. Your life is going to be full of transitions, especially the periods of your life where you are going through immense growth. those moments will sometimes be lonely because you're going through that alone. Only you can choose when to better yourself and how to push through a problem or push through a difficult transition to get yourself to the other side. You might have support through family or friends or your siblings or something like that, but you're going to go through lonely periods of your life, especially the transition moments. And so I think maybe I was just hypersensitive to certain things because that's what I've been doing with my life the last couple of years. And that's just kind of where I'm at. And I think it's good practice of self-awareness for me to admit that those are the feelings that are coming up. Those are the thoughts that are coming up. Those are the reasons why maybe I reacted a certain way when somebody would ask a question, or my responses are no. And then I felt immediately uncomfortable. That's just the reality of where I'm at. And so I started to think through, as I was listening to the rest of Jay Shetty's podcast on Call Her Daddy, I had kind of the epiphanies of thinking, I might be alone right now in my life, and I might be going through a lonely transition. But I think I would rather wait on the enhancement and the true acceptance of a partner. Wait on the enhancement that proper romantic love will bring me in my life, versus finding a placeholder for the sake of having a placeholder, right? For the sake of mitigating feelings of loneliness or drastic feelings that come from being alone. Because honestly, to me, a healthy relationship is going to come from two people who are deciding, hey, I like who you are and I want to make this work. And when you fill that space with a placeholder, somebody that you're dating or you're in a serious committed relationship with just for the sake of saying, I have a partner, or for the sake of avoiding being alone when you're not ready to be, or you're not comfortable being alone on your own, those placeholders are still going to require the same level of responsibility as a serious significant other would. You still have to think of their feelings. You still have to think of their time, their emotions. Even though they're just filling time and space for allegedly the one, they still are going to require effort from you. You don't want to be an asshole. You can't just be a dick to your placeholder person just because they're there, or just because you are realizing you don't love them the same way. Like, that's not respectful. It's not the way I would want to live. And if I'm already spending what little free time I do have left on someone else, why not wait and fill that role, fill that job with somebody you actually want to spend time with, somebody you actually respect, somebody whose opinions and values you're willing to incorporate into your life and learn and integrate and grow from. If relationships take that much effort, like, I'm not gonna fill that with just anybody. I'm not gonna have someone take up room in my life that's not worth being a permanent fixture for, right? So I started to think to myself, okay, if I'm standing firm in my grounds here, and I'm not going to stop living my life just because I don't have romantic love in the same way as some other people in my life might have it. And I'm definitely not going to supplement that with a placeholder, because it's not worth the emotional toll that it would take to maintain a placeholder relationship. I needed some more reminders of, like, why should I feel good about the decision that I've made? So that way, the next time somebody asks me this question, I'm not uncomfortable with the answer. And the only thing I could really think of was to start talking to myself as if, you're a bad bitch. Like, you need some reminders why you're a bad bitch. Yeah, you might be alone, but that just means, something. I was, being silly with myself. Like, you're marinating, okay? You are aging like a fine wine. The longer you wait, the better the better you'll be, the more exquisite, the more exclusive, the more whatever. Like, you're spending all this time, what time you're not spending on a romantic partner is time that you're pouring into your own cup. It's time that you are forcing yourself to grow. It's time where you're being introspective often you're choosing to grow. You're investing in yourself. You're investing in your branding and your products for the podcast, or through the podcast, I guess. And every single decision you have made, every single movement and choice that you have done has led you to this moment in life. And it has led you to being an independent, strong, self-sufficient person who doesn't need a placeholder to survive. So you need to revel in that power of your ability to choose your next step. You've already made all these decisions to get here. You can't change them now. Can't change the present in that sense based on the past. But if you are feeling alone in a lonely transitional period, I think you actually should look at your decision path as power. I think that's the best way for me to reframe it, at least for myself right now, because I can look back and know I walked away from this. I closed this door. I opened this window. I stepped through this, I stepped through this opening, whatever, and it got me to exactly here. And if I had done any of those steps even slightly differently, I would not be in the position that I'm in now. And the next step or the next door that I want to walk through, the next window I want to open, the next, thing I'm going to pass by, it's my choice. So I have power in that, having that choice and having the ability to pick a partner or reprioritize what levels of love I'm going to focus on or what types of love I'm focusing on at this point in my life. Like that's power. And it's reassuring to me to know that if I've trusted myself for this long to get me this far, and I've listened to when changes need to happen, and I make that change, it means I'm learning. It means I'm getting one step closer. I'm one measure better. Even if it's microscopic, I am one measure better by appreciating the power that I have to choose what I want out of my life. Plus, when you're at weddings or you're at events where people are asking you these types of questions or they're, bringing up topics that you're just not comfortable talking about. And let's be honest, when somebody asks you, why are you not married? That's not a yes or no question. Like it's not, or how come you're not dating, or, how could somebody like you still be single in this world? Blah, blah. That's not it's not a simple yes or no response really. So like those feelings when you're uncomfortable with your status at the time, or you're worried about where you're supposed to be, don't freak out yet. Don't, right? Because go back and reevaluate like all the decisions that you've made that's led you up to this point, and remind yourself why you're a bad bitch, because these feelings are temporary. This loneliness, this hard times during your transition, they will fade. They will move on. They will evolve to the next step where you are going to become the person that you were meant to be, even if it feels like a slow drip, and you're doing the best you can, right? Every decision you made, maybe not all of them were good decisions, but it led you to where you are, and you can only do as well as you can with the information that you have available at the time. And the best person, the wisest person, is somebody that's going to be aware of what they have available to them at the time, and ideally use that information to learn from the mistakes and not repeat them. And so I have to remind myself too that I am doing the best that I can. All the decisions I've made have led me to here, and I am still surrounded by love in different formats. Even if I don't have romantic love in the traditional sense, I have people in my life that do like my personality, that do respect my values, and that do support me achieving my goals. And that's what's important. And so I have been just trying to, ever since the wedding ended, I've just been trying to remind myself that, like, hey, take care of yourself. Yeah, you're going through a lot. You left your major career to figure out who you wanted to be, because the dream you used to have flipped on you unexpectedly, and you slowly started to hate who you were becoming. And I think that's kind of the bravest thing that I've done, is realizing I don't want to become this person. I don't like the direction it's taking me in. That is not who I want to be. And it made me avoid other things in my life, such as romantic partnerships. And like, it just kind of is what it is. I also chose to go to grad school, so I'm still in debt from graduate school. So I'm still paying off bills. And as a single individual, that's really tough. And you want to save money when you can, pay your bills as immediately, but also still live your life. And like, there's some days where I feel strapped, and it's kind of like, oh, dang, I got to rein it in. I got to be more responsible. I got to do this. I got to do that. Like, God, I wish it would be so much easier if I just had a partner that I lived with that could split these bills with me, that could share the load, that could take care of Dirks, that could take care of the utilities or split this with me. And that way I could focus on getting rid of my student loan debt faster, because I would have only half of the bills to pay for. Like, it just, these things flip through your mind, right? And like this year especially, I've been because I have a flexible job, I've been seeing my family more often. I've been in more weddings. I've been to more bachelorettes. I've had to travel for those events. I've bought more plane tickets. I've bought more hotel rooms. I've, seen more friends because they've had more babies. So I've been, going to more baby showers and those gifts and etc. And I'm doing my annual girls trip is coming up in November and December. So it's a lot. And there's been moments throughout this year where I've been like, oh, I'm so close. I've got this down. I'm getting this, I'm chiseling away at something. And then another bill comes and you're just kind of like, oh, God. And so I've had various moments this year where I've kind of felt like really good and then really low, and really good and then really low. And so that wedding was just one of those where I was like, I'm riding the high because I'm happy and joyful for my brother, and clearly my parents are happy and in a good place, and like the empath in me is like so nice to be absorbing all these other lovely, fun, great, happy, compassionate, grateful feelings. And then it's almost like having the devil and the angel on your shoulder kind of thing, and then the other one's like, but don't forget, you're in debt. Don't forget, you're still single. Don't forget, you've not made it to this place in your life where you thought you would be. And you have to shut that voice up. You have to tell it to shut up, because I think we all should be choosing creating memories over being manic. There's this influencer that I follow named Aubrey Bromlow, and she runs Fat and Weird Cookie with her husband, and she also has her own fitness business where she does online fitness training and personal training type things through her company called Memories Over Macros. And so, as a play on words for her business, I started to tell myself, you need to create memories over manic. Like, yeah, you've got a lot going on. Yeah, your job role is changing a little bit. Yeah, you might be in debt. You might have some credit card points that you can, switch things around with. You are alone. You're paying all your own things by yourself, and you are still trying to live your life, and you are still trying to save money, and you are still having all this travel and staying busy, and all this stuff is going on, but you are living your life. Just because you don't have a romantic partner doesn't mean that you're not out there living your life. There's going to be days where you're just on that verge of feeling kind of manic or a little bit stretched thin, and you need to remind yourself that you deserve memories over mania. You deserve memories over stress. You deserve memories over the loneliness. You deserve memories over stagnation. I would much rather be exactly where I'm at right now, growing and maturing and changing and getting better and improving my emotional intelligence, than to still be in a city or in a job role or in a place with a romantic partner that was wrong for me, that was stunting my growth, because they were truly just a placeholder, and I was spending time somewhere that didn't deserve my time. And I had some friends that were encouraging me over, the last couple of days while I was telling them what the podcast episode was going to be about, and how I was stressing and like trying to not freak out about where I'm at in my life. And like, I was telling my friend Autumn over the last couple of days kind of how I was trying to catch up on the podcast, that I had not released an episode in a while because I had been traveling for the wedding, and then we went to the events, and then I was feeling all these emotions and having all these realizations, and I'm still not where I thought I would have been in my career at this point, and I'm still trying to reconcile like this transition is hard. Like, there's days where I feel really good, and then there's other days where I feel not like a loser, but just like just the whole, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? And she was so kind, and she wrote back to me. I'm just going to read it to you. Isn't it one of the biggest slaps in the face to be so driven and motivated in your career, and then land in a place where it's like, I can do this. It'll help me live, but It isn't what drives me, and it's not where I thought I would be. And after all the effort I put in to get to where I thought I was supposed to go, now I'm here. And you're going to spend a portion of your life thinking and just kind of accepting that you need to make a living and that it's all going to be fine. But fine never used to be where I thought I would land. And then you can make a living and work on other parts of your life that need it, and there's something very liberating about that. So while you are living in your time of quote unquote fine, you need to know that you haven't wasted a scrap of time. You are keeping really busy, and you are living your life, and you are building something amazing and worthwhile with all of these endeavors. And I told her that that was a really good way to look at it, and a better way for me to have some perspective on the current position that I'm in is serving its purpose. My current relationship status right now is serving its purpose. My current financial status right now is serving its purpose. Whether that's to teach me to be more responsible, to manage my time better, to manage my payments better, to manage my investments better, whatever. All of these things that I thought were detriments to me are serving their purpose for whatever the growth is, whatever the transition is that I'm going through right now. And so I just thought it was really sweet that she's like, yeah, you're right. You're in a moment where you probably feel like you've been slapped in the face and you're trying to, find your drive again, but it'll all work out because you aren't actually wasting your time. You're out there living your life. And so I appreciated that reminder that just because I may not be where I thought I was going to be at this point in time doesn't mean that it has not been fruitful. I'm very grateful that I have friendships and partnerships and relationships that still show me love in other ways when I'm not getting love in the traditional sense of a romantic partner. And I think my listeners, my wanderlusters, my transition tribe, all of you also deserve to make memories over mania, to choose memories over mania. There's going to be times in your life where you are going through some of the worst hell, and you are just, it takes every bit of effort to drag yourself out of bed and go through the motions. But every decision you've made has led you to where you are now. And the beauty of that is that you get to make the next step. You get to choose what the next step will be. You get to make another decision. And you can decide to do something better for yourself, or you can decide to do something worse and then hopefully learn from that mistake. But there's power in your choice, and I think there's power in choosing memories over mania. So if you're not where you thought you would be right now in this moment, don't freak out, because you still have power in your choices, and you still should revel in the fact that everything you've done has led you to this moment. And if you had changed it in any kind of way, you would be a different person. And so I hope that whatever current version you are finding ways to appreciate the love and support that you do have in your life, no matter what format it comes in. Because I don't think prioritizing romantic partnerships or romantic love will solve all your problems, because that's temporary too. Surround yourself with the memories and the various types of love that will be supportive for a lifetime. And we have to stop hyper focusing on priorities that society decides are important, when or the reality is, like, you're living your life. What matters to you? What's making you a better person? Go after that. Make memories for that. But that's all I've got for you this week. I love you all so much. I'm super, super grateful for you listening in and tuning in to everything every week. And I apologize. I know I will try to not take another hiatus like that. I have some great stuff coming up. We did do the photo shoot for the rebrand, or not the slight rebranding and the upgrading of the show. So I'm super excited to share that with you as soon as I can. Hopefully in the next couple of months, I will slowly start, doling that out onto the Instagram and the TikToks, and hopefully when I get my act together, YouTube. And we're moving and grooving. We are moving in a positive direction, even though it's taking a little bit longer than I would have liked. But it's going forward, and it's exciting. It's really exciting. But as always, please like, subscribe, share the episode with a friend, even somebody you may not know, but you think it might help. Share it with them. Tell everybody you know that you have a good friend named Amanda. who's, going through her own miniature existential crisis every week, and she's sharing her thoughts and feelings about it, and you think that your friend could benefit because they will feel less alone after hearing this poor girl pour her heart out over and over again. So if you have anybody that you think would benefit from that, please share. I love it when you guys are sharing on Instagram and tagging me, or TikTok and tagging me. It's been so fun to kind of see who's been listening and which parts of the episodes that you like. So please keep doing that. I'm doing my best to DM everybody back, or respond back, or at least heart it when you send me a message. So please keep doing that. You can still email me at askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. I'm always open to feedback, so leave that, 5 stars and a review. That would be awesome. And of course, remember, wanderers are always welcome.